Hi everyone, it's Kathy with Kathy Reads Fiction, and it's been a week since finishing my first five-star book of the year, and I have really taken the week to reflect on my own life and how I want to be remembered after I'm gone. When Breath Becomes Air is a memoir about Dr. Paul Kalanithi, a neurosurgeon who suffered from stage 4 lung cancer. He always had a love for literature and had always wanted to write. He believed himself to be a writer, but he found that he couldn't find the answers that he wanted to some questions about life in literature. He wanted to know the meaning of life. What makes life worth living? What's the connection between the physical body and the spiritual sense? So he thought, what better way to find the meaning of life than to experience it firsthand through the medical field? It's a field that he had long resisted because he had seen the toll that it can take on families since his father was a doctor. But he had a passion about learning what makes life worth living and how does the human body and the spiritual body come together and work to find the meaning of life in itself. So he took his language and biology major in college a step farther and studied medicine. This book is structured in two parts with a moving forward, a gripping prologue, and a very effective epilogue by his wife Lucy. If you read one book this year, let it be this one. This book will, in a one-word summary, this book is important. The writing is beautiful and poetic and filled with so much of Dr. Kalanithi's heart and his soul, his discoveries of what it is to go from being a doctor to being a patient, both the blessing and the curse that it can be to being a patient who is a doctor, especially when facing your own mortality. In the first part of the book, Dr. Kalanithi writes of his own marital troubles, his college life, work as a neurosurgeon resident. His work and writing in this part of the book really offers a vivid portrait of just how much he gained about life and the physical body. He learned one patient at a time, and it changed him. It had actually started to answer some of those questions. But if you're tempted to skim through some of the patient cases and the medical jargon, don't. It's important to Dr. Kalanithi's story, his journey. It's important to know Dr. Kalanithi, and that part one is significant in getting to know him. Dr. Kalanithi knew his diagnosis of lung cancer long before the first scan was done because he recognized the symptoms as a physician. Now, I saw so much of my mother in this story because as a nurse, she knew the symptoms of her own lung cancer long before the diagnosis was officially given. The similarities between Dr. Kalanithi's journey and that of my mother's were alarming. It made my emotions very raw, but nothing prepared me or my emotions or made them more raw than when I realized that I am Lucy Kalanithi. I know her. I understand her. I've been her. This book made that time on January 22nd, 2002, when my husband Terry took his last breath from stage 4 cancer. It made it very recent. Just as Dr. Kalanithi told Lucy that he was ready just before he died, Terry did the same. He told me that he was ready, that his body was tired, but he knew what he believed, and he was ready to go when that time came. Part 2 of the book focuses on Dr. Kalanithi's treatment and his journey through continuing to gain meaning from life and what makes it worth living. His struggles through this part of the book are real. They're raw. They're very affecting. He and his wife Lucy had decided early on in their marriage that they had wanted to have a child after he finished his training as a doctor and was established in his career. With his prognosis, they faced the decision of whether they should abandon that idea or address it with an urgency. Would he have a difficult time saying goodbye to his child? Would the child be old enough to remember him after he's gone? Now, as a mother, I can attest that there is no greater love than that for one's child. And Dr. Kalanithi's understanding of the pain of leaving a child speaks volumes. Truly, what better way to experience pain than to love someone so much that the pain is so great when you leave them. The irony of finding meaning of life through death is real. Of taking your last breath just after your child takes their first. There is truly an irony all throughout this book. It's heartbreaking, but it's one that you need to get through. When the epilogue begins in Lucy's voice, my mind and heart were so overwhelmed with emotion. I realized that Dr. Kalanithi was gone, and Lucy is giving her perspective, and it is emotional to say the least. This book really struck a chord in me in so many ways as a whole, and the epilogue was very familiar to me, bringing the bittersweetness of losing a soulmate to the forefront. It hit me personally. None of us are going to survive this life, and Dr. Kalanithi has exited his life with such grace, understanding, and a message that we can all take to heart about how to live and die well. My eyes have welled up with tears that didn't fall before when reading a book. I've cried tears for fictional books before, but those times are very few and far between. This book is different. I cried myself to sleep after reading this book. I felt it the next day and the next. Like I said, it's been a week, and this book is still affecting me. But this book really is more about life than it is about death. It's not depressing as much as it's inspirational. It's a book that everyone should experience it. I can talk about this book so much, and I'm really trying to hold back in this video, but it's one that you should read. It's one that you should experience. If you only read one book this year, make it this one. Whether it's out of your genre, out of your comfort zone, you don't think you can handle it, just read it. Experience it anyway. It will truly give you a different take on your own life and the lives around you. You'll find meaning. You will find meaning. Leave a comment below if this is a book that interests you, or if it's a book that you've read. In the meantime, happy reading.